The night sky over Earth was calm, but not for long. The stars, which had always been peaceful, began to flicker and shake. A low hum filled the air, spreading across every city, every town. People stopped what they were doing. Something was wrong. At first, it was just a rumor. The news spoke of strange lights in the sky. But soon the lights became impossible to ignore. Massive shadows appeared, blocking out the stars. Thousands of ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever seen, slowly descended toward Earth. These were no ordinary ships. They were Draconian warships, and they were headed straight for Earth. The Draconians had been a myth for centuries. No one truly believed they were real. They were stories told by the elders, tales of a powerful race that once ruled the galaxy. Their fleets were said to be unstoppable, their warriors feared by every other species. But now, they were real, and they were here. News stations began to broadcast live footage. People stared in disbelief as the massive ships hovered just above the atmosphere. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The air was thick with tension. The Draconian fleet wasn't just passing by, they were landing. Earth had never faced anything like this before. Governments scrambled to make contact, but communication was impossible. The ships emitted a strange, almost electric signal that disrupted all transmissions. There was no warning. There was no explanation. The world had no idea what was happening. The Draconians had always been said to be silent, their ships making no noise, their actions swift and deadly. But on Earth, they made their presence known. As the fleet came closer to the surface, the ground seemed to tremble. People could feel the weight of their ships in their bones. It was as though the entire planet was holding its breath. The military was put on high alert, but they were powerless. Earth's best weapons couldn't even scratch the surface of the Draconian ships. It was like the fleet had appeared out of nowhere, and no one knew how to stop them. And then, they vanished. Just as quickly as they had come, the fleet was gone. The sky returned to normal, the stars shining peacefully once again. But the people of Earth were left in shock. They had witnessed something no one thought possible, and now the world was asking the same question. Why had they come? There were no answers. No one knew what had happened to the Draconian fleet or where they had gone. One moment they were there, hovering above Earth like a shadow. The next, they were gone, leaving only questions behind. The whole world was left in confusion. Government scrambled to figure out what had happened. Was it a test, a warning, or something else entirely? Was it possible that the Draconians had simply disappeared, or was there a darker reason behind their sudden arrival and mysterious disappearance? The silence after their departure was deafening. Earth had just experienced a visit from one of the most feared species in the galaxy, and now they were gone, without a trace. People could not stop talking about it. Theories spread like wildfire. Some believed the Draconians had come to invade, only to leave when they saw Earth's defenses weren't as weak as they had expected. Others thought the Draconians had been called away by someone more powerful. The idea that Earth was just a passing stop in their galactic journey seemed impossible, but for every theory there was no proof. No one knew what had really happened. What was clear, however, was the fear that had settled over the planet. If the Draconians could vanish like that, what else could happen? Who were they really, and why had they come to Earth? The only thing that was certain was this: the galaxy was not as peaceful as Earth had once thought. There were forces at play, far beyond anything humanity had ever known. Forces that could erase an entire fleet without a trace, and Earth was now caught in the middle of something much bigger than they could understand. In the days following the mysterious disappearance of the Draconian fleet, the world was left in a state of uneasy quiet. The chaos of their arrival had turned into a deep, unsettling silence. Governments, military leaders, and scientists worldwide were scrambling to understand what had just occurred. The Draconians, an ancient and terrifying species, had vanished without leaving a single clue. Questions filled the air. What had caused their sudden departure? Why had they come to Earth in the first place? Was it a warning? A test? or something much more sinister? The world had never faced anything like this. The Draconians weren't just a myth, they were real, and they had touched down on Earth only to disappear just as quickly. As Earth's best minds worked tirelessly to understand the event, strange things started happening. Scientists who were studying the fleet's remains, if there were any, found themselves plagued by strange power surges. Communication systems failed without explanation. Data that had been recorded during the fleet's arrival began to glitch, revealing odd symbols that no one could interpret. The world's governments tried to maintain control, but their efforts were futile. Every attempt to track down any trace of the Draconian fleet failed. Satellites scanned the skies for any sign of them, but they found nothing. The fleet had simply vanished, as if it had never been there at all. Meanwhile, a small group of scientists discovered something unsettling. Hidden deep within the fleet's massive technology were traces of a powerful energy source, one that didn't belong to any known civilization. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The energy felt alive. It was as if the ships themselves were breathing. These findings raised even more questions. What kind of power could create a fleet of such immense size, and where had it gone? Was the fleet's disappearance a result of that strange energy, or was there another force at work, something far beyond what Earth's technology could comprehend? As the search for answers continued, rumors began to spread. Some said the Draconians were hiding, watching humanity. Others believed they had been pulled away by an even more powerful force, one that had no interest in Earth. But no one could prove anything. Every lead they followed led to dead ends. In the midst of this confusion, a new and terrifying possibility emerged. A message, an encrypted transmission, was intercepted by Earth's most advanced monitoring systems. It was a message from an unknown source, warning humanity that they were now part of something much bigger. The message spoke of the Great Balance, an ancient order that governed the galaxy. It said that Earth had unknowingly become a target, and the Draconian fleet's disappearance was just the beginning. The message hinted at a far greater danger, one that would soon come to Earth. It was clear now. Earth was not just a bystander in the galaxy's vast drama. It was a pawn in a game much larger than anyone could have imagined. But the message was only a small piece of the puzzle. As Earth's leaders struggled to understand its meaning, more disturbing reports started to surface. Disturbing because they weren't coming from Earth. They were coming from other parts of the galaxy. Multiple alien civilizations, some of which had been long thought to be peaceful, began to report strange phenomena. Entire fleets were disappearing, without explanation. Systems that had once been stable and secure began to destabilize, and no one knew why. The galaxy, it seemed, was unraveling. The disappearance of the Draconian fleet was just the beginning of something far worse. As the galaxy's most powerful civilizations began to take notice, Earth found itself caught in the middle. Some began to wonder if humanity had a part to play in this cosmic disaster, while others feared the worst, that Earth was about to face something far beyond its ability to defend itself. The search for answers was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. The galaxy was changing, and Earth, for better or worse, was right in the center of it. As Earth scrambled to make sense of the Draconian fleet's disappearance, a disturbing discovery surfaced. A secret that had been buried for centuries was suddenly thrust into the light, an ancient warning that no one had expected to find. It wasn't from Earth's history, nor from any of the alien species humanity had encountered before. It was a message from deep within the galaxy's forgotten past. A group of researchers, digging through the ruins of an old forgotten space, stationed on the edge of the galaxy, stumbled upon a strange artifact, an ancient crystal. Its surface glowed with an eerie blue light, and when they connected it to Earth's most powerful computers, it began to speak. The message was cryptic, but the meaning was clear. The warning was old, older than any known species in the galaxy. It spoke of a time when the Draconians were not just conquerors, but keepers of an ancient balance. They were tasked with protecting the galaxy from a force that was beyond even their control, a force that had been locked away in the farthest reaches of space. The crystal's message was direct. When the Draconians disappear, the great lock will break. The researchers didn't know what to make of this. The Draconians, the most feared and powerful species in the galaxy, had been entrusted with keeping something locked away, something that could potentially destroy everything. And now that they had vanished, the galaxy's balance was at risk. The message was followed by another revelation. The Draconians had never intended to conquer Earth. Their arrival wasn't a show of force or dominance. It was a warning, a desperate attempt to contain an ancient evil that humanity had no knowledge of. But they had failed. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. It wasn't just about the Draconians anymore. It was about something much bigger, something far more dangerous. Earth was now in the crossfire of a galactic struggle that had been brewing for millennia. As word spread, the atmosphere on Earth grew more tense. Leaders, military commanders, and scientists tried to make sense of what had been uncovered, but the answers were few and far between. Some believed the Draconians had come to Earth to warn humanity, while others feared that the disappearance of the fleet meant the galaxy was on the brink of collapse. The truth, however, was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The lock the Draconians had protected wasn't just a physical object, it was a force capable of consuming entire civilizations, bending space and time itself. And the Draconians had been the only ones strong enough to hold it at bay. But now, with the fleet gone, the lock was breaking. And it was only a matter of time before the force they had kept imprisoned for so long would be unleashed. As Earth's leaders debated their next move, the galaxy's most powerful species began to take action. They could no longer ignore what had happened. The disappearance of the Draconian fleet had set off a chain of events that no one could control. They all knew that the time for diplomacy had passed. What was coming next would require more than just words. It would require power, and Earth was unprepared. The forces that had once been contained were now stirring, and Earth, caught in the middle, had no idea what it was about to face. The warning was clear. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict, and humanity had no choice but to be a part of it. As the days passed, Earth's skies grew darker. The stars, once a symbol of hope, now seemed to watch with silent eyes. Something was coming. Something terrible. And Earth was at the center of it all. As the days dragged on, the silence left by the Draconian fleet's sudden disappearance was replaced by chaos. The galaxy's most powerful entities, the Galactic Council, were in turmoil. No one could ignore the growing unease, and whispers of something far more dangerous than the Draconians had begun to spread. The Council, an alliance of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, had always maintained an air of control over galactic matters. They were the peacekeepers, the decision-makers, and the enforcers of order in a universe that was anything but peaceful. But now, their unity was fracturing. The disappearance of the Draconian fleet had shattered their confidence, and fear was taking root. On the surface, Earth appeared to be just another species caught up in the chaos, an innocent bystander in a galactic game they didn't fully understand. But behind closed doors, the Council saw things differently. Earth was no longer a peaceful, unknown planet. It had become the center of an unimaginable cosmic storm. The most powerful species of the Council, those who had once thought of the Draconians as the ultimate force in the galaxy, began to question their own safety. With the Draconians gone, the galaxy had lost its protector, and the lock that had kept a greater threat contained was now vulnerable. It wasn't long before emissaries from the Council arrived on Earth, not as allies but as invaders. Their ships, sleek and silent, descended toward the planet. Earth's leaders watched as the Council's delegates landed in the heart of major cities, their arrival a powerful statement. A meeting was called, and Earth's top military and scientific minds gathered to face these alien ambassadors. The air was thick with tension, but the delegates came with an unsettling calm. They were not here to negotiate peace, they were here to demand answers. "You have no idea what you've done," one of the delegates said, his voice cold and unfeeling. "The Draconians did not leave by choice. They failed. They were meant to protect something far greater than you can understand. And now the entire galaxy is in danger. The message was clear. Earth was now part of something far darker than they could have imagined. The Draconians' failure to contain the ancient force had created a ripple effect that was spreading through the galaxy like a wave, destabilizing entire systems. In mere days, civilizations that had been stable for millennia began to collapse. Unknown forces were attacking, and no one knew where they were coming from or what they wanted. The Council's message was simple. Earth had unknowingly set off a chain of events that could end all life in the galaxy. The balance that the Draconians had worked so hard to maintain had been broken, and now the galaxy's most powerful civilizations were scrambling to pick up the pieces. "We need your cooperation," the delegate continued. "We need you to understand that the forces you've awakened will not spare you. You are part of this now, and if you do not join us, if you do not help us track down what has been unleashed, Earth will burn." The threat was undeniable. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations, once allies of the Draconians, were now staring down at Earth with distrust and fear. And Earth, with its newfound knowledge and power, had no choice but to act. But how? How could humanity fight a battle against something so ancient, so powerful, that even the Draconians had failed to contain it? The Council had offered no answers, only demands. The pressure mounted on Earth's leaders as they faced the harsh reality. They had no choice but to work with the very civilizations that had once seen them as insignificant. The time for diplomacy was over. Earth had been thrust into the center of a galactic war, and it was clear that no one, no species, no civilization, could afford to sit on the sidelines any longer. As the Council delegates departed, leaving Earth's leaders to process the gravity of their words, the sky above Earth seemed to grow darker. Something was coming, something ancient and deadly, and humanity was no longer just a bystander. It was now an unwilling participant in a galactic struggle far beyond anything they could have imagined. The galaxy was on the edge of total collapse, and Earth was at the center of it all. With the Galactic Council's warning echoing in their minds, humanity had no choice but to act. But no one truly understood what they were facing. Not yet. Earth's leaders were still grasping for answers, desperate for any clue that could help them understand the ancient force the Draconians had once contained. As Earth's brightest minds pored over every scrap of information they could find, one breakthrough occurred. Deep within the data collected from the Draconian fleet, fragments of encrypted transmissions and ancient texts, something stood out. It was an ancient map, unlike any chart humanity had ever seen. It depicted the entire galaxy, but there were sections marked in red, areas that were completely blacked out. A large, dark mass loomed in the center of the map, an area labeled the Void. The coordinates pointed to a place so far beyond known space that no one had ever considered it before. It was there, in the heart of the galaxy, that the greatest secret was hidden. The Draconians had been guarding the Void for millennia, keeping it locked away from the rest of the galaxy. But why? And what could be so dangerous that even the most powerful species in the galaxy feared it? The truth was about to come to light. In a quiet, secure lab on Earth, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. An ancient Draconian artifact, unearthed from the ruins of their fleet, began to pulse with a strange, otherworldly energy. As researchers connected it to Earth's most advanced computers, a terrifying message was revealed. The message, sent from the Draconians themselves, was a warning. But not just any warning. This was the moment the galaxy had feared for centuries. It was the prophecy that foretold the coming of an unimaginable evil. The Void wasn't just a place. It was a force that had once been imprisoned, a living power of pure destruction. This ancient entity, known only as the Devourer, was capable of consuming entire star systems, tearing apart entire civilizations in a matter of moments. It existed outside the laws of the universe, beyond space, time, and even death itself. The Draconians had been the only ones strong enough to imprison the Devourer, using their advanced technology to create the lock that kept it contained. But now with the Draconian fleet gone, the lock had weakened, and as the message warned, it was only a matter of time before the Devourer would escape. But there was more. The prophecy had one final line. When the Draconians fall, the Devourer will rise, and all who remain will bow to its will. The realization hit Earth like a tidal wave. The Draconians hadn't come to conquer, they had come to protect. They hadn't disappeared by choice. They had fallen in their final battle to keep the Devourer contained. Their fleet's vanishing wasn't a failure, it was a desperate last stand. And now, Earth had unknowingly become the key to the galaxy's salvation or destruction. As the galaxy watched, Earth became the center of a fight for survival. If humanity could somehow unlock the secrets of the void and restore the Draconian lock, they might stand a chance. But if they failed, the Devourer would be unleashed, and the entire galaxy would fall to its endless hunger. The clock was ticking. For the first time, Earth understood the true weight of what they were facing. It wasn't just a battle for their survival. It was a battle for the very existence of the galaxy. And it wasn't clear if humanity was ready to fight the darkness that was about to break free. As the night sky above Earth grew darker, a new sense of urgency swept across the planet. The galaxy's fate rested in the hands of those who had only just begun to understand the forces they were dealing with. And even though the Draconians were gone, their legacy remained. The galaxy wasn't just watching Earth anymore, it was waiting to see if humanity could rise to the challenge, or if they would be consumed by the darkness that was about to descend upon them.